I never imagined how Hyundai rose from the ashes to redefine resilience in a cutthroat industry. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I stood there, watching the flames devour the factory, consuming everything we had built. The air was thick with smoke, the smell of burning metal and dreams intertwining. I could hear the cracking of wood and metal, like thunder announcing a storm. Tears streamed down my cheeks. How could this happen? Just hours earlier, we had been working tirelessly, a family bound by ambition and hope. My brother, Min, was there with me, his hands trembling with excitement as we prepared for the launch of our newest model. He believed in our dream. We all did. But now, that belief was burning away, reduced to ashes amidst the chaos. Min's laughter echoed in my ears, a painful reminder of the joy we once shared. We were inseparable, partners in crime, tackling the world with nothing but courage. The bond was forged in late-night discussions and shared dreams, planning how we would revolutionize the automotive industry together. Now he was standing beside me, lips parted in shock, eyes wide lost in disbelief. I remembered our father's words. Resilience is like the steel that strengthens a car. It's unyielding, even when faced with the harshest elements. But what do we do when the very foundation trembles beneath us? The crowd gathered, whispers rippling through the air. How could this have happened? What went wrong? Their voices turned into a cacophony of judgment. I clenched my fists, feeling the anger simmering deep inside. Then it happened, an explosion. A shock wave of heat slammed into me, knocking the breath from my lungs. I stumbled back, hands protecting my face. A piece of metal ricocheted and hit the ground beside me, a grim reminder of our precarious situation. Panic surged. I could see Min frozen, as if the world had turned into slow motion. I shouted his name, but no sound came out. What lay ahead? Would we rise from this disaster, or would we drown in the despair? The uncertainty gnawed at me. The fire raged on, the framing structure of our future crumbling into the night. I could see the despair in the eyes of my workers, people I cared about. I wanted to scream. I wanted to fight. We were at a crossroads. Just then, a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. A man dressed in black, his face obscured. He approached and my heart raced. Who was he? What did he want? Did he have answers? Or was he another twist in our devastating tale? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the flames continued their voracious feast, devouring everything we had poured our souls into, I took a tentative step towards the shadowy figure. Panic and dread clouded my judgment, but there was something magnetic about his presence. He moved with an enigmatic grace, an air of confidence that felt oddly reassuring amid the chaos. Are you here to help? I managed to croak, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. My question hung in the air, met with silence as the inferno crackled around us. Min's hand tightened on my arm, grounding me as I saw uncertainty in his eyes. Too. The onlookers murmured, their fear thickening the atmosphere, but I couldn't tear my gaze away from the stranger. He pulled back his hood, revealing sharp features framed by a slight beard, and piercing eyes that seemed to hold countless tales of their own. Help comes in many forms, he said, his voice steady yet laced with an underlying sorrow. But first, you need to hear the truth. The world felt suspended, like time had paused while the blaze raged on. Inside me wrestled a storm of emotions: grief, anger, and a flicker of hope. What truth? I demanded, desperation leaking into my tone. That it wasn't an accident, he replied, and the words hit me like a punch. This fire was deliberate. Someone wanted to bring you down. I felt the earth tremble beneath me. The betrayal cut deeper than the flames surrounding us. How could anyone do this? I stumbled over my own disbelief. The weight of his revelation pressed down, and I could sense Mint's shock mirroring my own. The same people who are shaking in their boots at your potential. He continued, his intensity unyielding. You've made enemies along your rise, and they'll stop at nothing to dismantle what you're building. Why are you telling us this? Min asked, his voice almost a plea for understanding, as if we were tangled in a web of conspiracy. What do you want from us? To help you rise from the ashes, he said, somber yet firm. But you have to trust me. Trust felt like a fragile commodity. Could we trust a stranger in the swirling chaos? But in that moment, I was painfully aware that we had little left to lose. The factory, our home, the heart of our dreams, was burning behind us. I glanced at Min, whose brows knit with concern, yet a spark of determination flickered in his gaze. Let's hear him out, he said quietly, and hope, like a timid flower pushing through cracks in concrete, began to bloom in my chest. Before the man could respond, my phone vibrated violently in my pocket. I fished it out, the screen lighting up with a text notification. I looked down and froze. It was from our investors, demanding a meeting now. The urgency in their words cut through my rising hope. Please, I implored the man, if you can help us, now is the time. He nodded, yielding to the weight of the moment. Meet me at the old warehouse on River Road in 1 hour. We'll discuss how to fight back. As he disappeared into the shadows, the urgency of the moment pressed down on me. How could we recover from a betrayal so deep? The fire's heat still lingered in my spirit, dragging my thoughts into the abyss of despair. But I felt the stirrings of defiance. No one was going to take away our dreams without a fight. We had to seize this lifeline. But as I turned to Min, ready to share my fervor, I saw devastation etched across his face. He was staring not at me, but past me, his eyes frozen in horror. Following his gaze, I turned just in time to see one of our most loyal workers, Suki, emerging from the crowd. Her face drenched in tears. I tried to save what I could, she said breathlessly, holding out a charred piece of metal, the emblem of our new model, a symbol of everything we had built. But it's gone. They've taken it all. A wave of despair crashed over me, and as I looked into her eyes, a realization dawned. Amidst the ashes, there was no guarantee we could rise again. The fire danced behind us, eagerly consuming stories, hope, and dreams. Our future felt as uncertain as the flickering shadows cast on the charred ground. As we stood there, cradling the wreckage of our dreams and our shared pain, I knew that this was only the beginning. The fight for our legacy was far from over. Just then, I felt something cold brush against my leg. I looked down to find a second charred emblem lying in the Greta, hidden remnant of our once proud vision. It was still warm to the touch, and in that split second, a mixture of fear and determination coursed through my veins. Was it a sign? A reminder that even in darkness, there is still something worth salvaging? Or was it just another cruel twist of fate? Before I could process my thoughts, another text buzzed on my phone. I looked at it hesitantly, an icy dread settling in the pit of my stomach as I read the message. We know where you are. We're coming. Fire had a way of rewriting narratives, of leaving an inky mark on the canvas of what once was. As I stood there, heart racing and fingers clenching the smoldering emblem, it felt like I was caught in a nightmare woven from despair and resolve. Suki's anguished expression mirrored my own internal tempest, a visceral reminder of our vulnerability. The remnants of our hopes lay scattered on the ground like ashes, begging for recognition. Is this truly the end? The words escaped my lips before I realized I had spoken them aloud. I wanted to scream at the universe for its cruelty, for lifting us high only to let the ground swallow us whole. Not if we don't let it be, Min rasped, pulling me close. His sincerity wrapped around me like a wool blanket, its warmth fighting against the chilling reality that threatened to engulf me. We can't let them win. We have to fight back. The hint of conviction in his voice reignited a flicker of determination in me. Meet at the warehouse in an hour, I murmured to him, still staring at the remnants of our dreams in Suki's hands. We can come back from this. We just need a plan. Suki nodded, still visibly shaken, but there was a steeliness hidden beneath her sorrow. You're right. I won't let them take everything. We'll rebuild, no matter what it takes. Hope, though frayed and battered, began to knit itself together in our hearts. We turned away from the blaze that still crackled menacingly behind us, hearts pounding with a mix of impending dread and blossoming resolve. The way forward was clouded, obscured by uncertainty, but we were no longer trapped by fear. We were transformed, inspired by the weight of what we had lost and the unity we had found among the ashes. As we headed toward the meeting spot, I found my thoughts racing. Who was this man, and how could he possibly help us against forces that seemed so far-reaching and insidious? Something about him gnawed at me, a curiosity intertwined with instinctual mistrust. Trust had become a fragile thing, a commodity harder to come by now than it had ever been. Just as we turned the corner toward the warehouse, Suki stumbled suddenly, almost as if she had seen a ghost. I darted my gaze in the direction she was staring and noticed a flicker of black fabric disappearing around a corner. Did you see that? She whispered, the tremor in her voice sending chills down my spine. See what? Min asked, brows furrowed with confusion. I thought I saw someone. They were watching us. The doubt in her eyes mirrored my own fear, but we had little time to question shadows now. We had to keep moving. Reaching the old warehouse, we entered cautiously. The industrial coolness enveloped us, and I took a moment to breathe in the familiarity of it. This place had witnessed countless late nights filled with laughter and dreams, and now it seemed to echo with our hurt. The scent of rust and oil carried the ghosts of our past ambitions, buzzing around us like an electricity that was almost palpable. And then there he was, the mysterious man from the fire, the only beacon we had to navigate this storm of betrayal. As he stepped forward, the dim light of the warehouse caught the sharpness of his features, and the weight of a new urgency settled in the air. Did you come? He asked simply, as if he had no doubt we would. Why would we listen to you? Min interjected, a simmer of suspicion bubbling beneath his words. You dropped a bombshell on us, and now we are supposed to trust you. I understand your hesitation. The man held up his hands, a gesture of peace. But what I'm offering isn't for your benefit alone, it's for all of us. There's much at stake. Then show us. My voice was steadier than I felt. What can you tell us? Who wants to destroy our future? He hesitated, casting a glance at the shadows lingering at the edges of the warehouse. Let's start with this. The fire was only the beginning. Those responsible are part of a larger scheme. It's not just your company they want to ruin, it's anyone who threatens their industry stronghold. An icy foreboding gripped my chest. Who are they? Before he could respond, a sudden crash resonated from outside, reverberating through the walls. My heart sank as I immediately thought of Suki, Min, and the fragile plans we had just begun to stitch together. Get down, I shouted, pulling them behind a rusted machine, adrenaline coursing through my body. Outside, the sound of footsteps thudded against concrete, each one a herald of uncertainty. Voices rose a frantic murmur punctuated by the sense of pursuers closing in. And then I remembered the message on my phone, that ominous text that haunted me. We know where you are. We're coming. My pulse raced as dread mingled with the new urgency to fight. There was no more time left for doubt. We had to act, and quickly, before shadows turned into threats, and finally into losses we couldn't bear to face. As we huddled by the machinery, the weight of reality pulled us into our own depths of fear and resolve. The man's knowing gaze locked onto mine, and in that instant, I understood. Our battle was only beginning, and what lay ahead would either forge us into something greater or shatter us completely. With the echoes of footsteps nearing, a new revelation swallowed me whole. Whatever was waiting outside threatened not only our future but our very lives, and the choice between trust and fear hung heavily in the air, ready to tip the scales forever. The warehouse felt more like a cage than a sanctuary now, the walls pressing in as we crouched in silence, listening intently to the chaos outside. Adrenaline surged through my veins. Each quickened heartbeat reminded me of how close we were to losing everything again. The earlier flickers of hope now felt like distant memories, and I could hear the creeping sense of dread creeping back into my mind. "Listen," the mysterious man hissed, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to make sure they don't see us." He slid a glance toward the entrance, the tension in his demeanor notable enough to leave a mark in the air. I wanted to trust him, to believe that he could guide us through the storm, but every instinct screamed for caution. "We can't stay here," Min whispered, his eyes darting around like a trapped animal. "If they're looking for us, we have to find another way out." "Wait," I cautioned, holding a hand up. The steps outside were heavy and loaded with purpose, and they echoed in our ears like a countdown. "We need to know who they are first. We need information before we make a run for it." The man straightened slightly, a flash of hesitation crossing his features. "It's not just anyone. You're being hunted by a faction that doesn't forgive. It's personal." "Personal how?" Suki's voice trembled, her beautiful features clouded by anxiety. "What do you mean?" Before he could reply, the warehouse door creaked ominously, splintering the air with a low groan. I clenched my fists, preparing for a confrontation, my mind racing through thoughts of escape plans and potential traps. But I couldn't abandon hope. Not now. And just then, as if on cue, the door burst open with a resounding crash that chilled us to the core. In the tumultuous entrance, a shadowy figure stood framed against the dimming light outside, a silhouette I thought I recognized. My heart raced, confusion swirling within me. Could it really be Marina? A voice bellowed, full of urgency and desperation. I blinked hard, trying to process what was happening while time seemed to stand still. "Hannah?" I breathed, my heart swelling as I recognized my childhood friend, the girl who had once been my anchor during the toughest storms. But what was she doing here? "Come on. We don't have much time," she urged, her eyes darting nervously. Behind her, a group of figures loomed in the shadows, and I felt an instinctive fear tugging at me, my past mixed with an alarming present. "Hannah, how did you find me?" I stammered, trying to reconcile the joy of seeing her with the gravity of our predicament. "It's complicated," she said, closing the door behind her as fear creased her brow. "I overheard that they were targeting you. I had to come and warn you." A wave of uncertainty crashed over me. "Who are they? What do you know?" But there was urgency in her eyes and a seriousness about her demeanor that told me now was not the moment for questions. "I can't explain everything here. If we don't move now, we might not have another chance." The man turned to me, worry flickering in his gaze. "We can trust her. She has connections." "And you didn't think to mention that before?" Min shot back, tension bubbling in the air like molten steel. "Trust is hard to come by in times like these," the man replied softly. "But one thing is clear. The longer we wait, the smaller our chances become." Suki, resolve hardening her fragile frame, began to inch toward Hannah. "How can we get out?" Hannah pointed to the back of the warehouse. "There's an old exit through the alley. It might be our best shot." "I don't like this," I murmured, glancing at the shadows now inching their way into the warehouse like a creeping fog. But what other option did we have? Succumbing to the dark would be a death sentence. As we scrambled toward the back exit, urgency propelled us forward. But just then, a voice bolted through the shadows, deep and commanding, filling the air with a sense of dread that left my bones rattling. "You think you can run? I suggest you just give up. You cannot escape what has already been set in motion." I froze mid-step, my mind reeling at the ominous threat. The warehouse fell silent except for the sound of our collective breaths. There was something in the air, a feeling that our fates were twisted together with forces beyond our comprehension, waiting to collide. And then Hannah turned to me, urgency sharpening her features. "Listen, we need to trust each other now more than ever. They're onto us. But there's a way out." My heart raced as we teetered on the edge of an unraveling fate, caught in the merciless grip of fear combined with the thin threads of hope. As the figures outside started to converge, we had no choice but to leap into the unknown, praying that together, we would find a way to forge our own futures from the ashes of what had once been. In that harrowing moment, the line between courage and fear blurred, and I couldn't help but wonder, would we escape this alive? Or would the fight to reclaim our lives become our ultimate undoing? The alley outside the warehouse felt like a different world, drenched in deepening shadows and the sharp scent of rain-soaked asphalt. My heart pounded fiercely against my ribcage as we slipped through the narrow opening, the weight of Hannah's presence behind us providing a flicker of familiar comfort amid the chaos. "Keep moving," she urged, her voice slightly muffled by the enveloping darkness. The urgency in her tone compelled us forward. Mint's hand gripped mine tightly, grounding me as the uncertainty of our escape draped a heavy cloak over our hearts. Suddenly, a distant shout shattered the silence of the night echoes of our pursuers weaving through the darkness. "There's no way out. Find them!" The desperation, laced with menace, stripped away any remaining illusion of safety. "What do they want from us?" Suki whispered, her voice trembling as we maneuvered deeper into the alleyways. A question I craved an answer to, but one I knew would only birth more dread. "They want to silence you," the mysterious man said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "You hold a secret that could change everything." "What do you mean?" I demanded, struggling to keep pace as the adrenaline coursed through my veins. "How can we have anything of importance? We're just people trying to survive." He shot me a glance, one filled with an unsettling mix of caution and urgency. "You don't fully understand. Your past, it weaves in and out of a bigger picture. They believe that if they silence you, they can control the narrative." My heart sank. Pieces of a puzzle I had never known started to surface, colliding into a painful realization that my life had been a mere chapter in a far grander story. A story I felt unprepared to write. "Don't panic," Hannah said, her breath quickening as she glanced around us, searching for any signs of danger. "We need to get to the safe house. It's not far from here." "Safe house?" Min interjected, skepticism flooding his voice. "How can we be sure it's safe?" "Because I trust the person who owns it," Hannah replied, urgency sharpening her voice. "He's been helping others like us. You just need to trust me." Trust. The word hung heavy, suspended in the air like a promise deferred. As we sped through the maze of alleys, every corner turned seemed to deepen the rift of uncertainty. Each echoing footstep reverberated with an ominous resonance, reminding us how close our pursuers were. "Here," Hannah pointed to a seemingly inconspicuous building tucked away beneath flickering streetlights. I hesitated, my instincts screaming caution. The shadows offered a deceptive allure, but the pounding sounds of pursuit urged us onward. We piled into the dimly lit room as Hannah closed the door behind us, sealing us away from the world outside. Clasping each other's hands tightly, we shared features etched with resolve and fear. The space felt small and suffocating, but the warmth of its walls whispered promises of safety. "Stay quiet," Hannah warned, leading us deeper into the shadows. "Alberto will be here soon. He can help us." Before I could respond, my thoughts spiraled. Each moment spent in this hidden cavern felt heavy with uncertainty, and perhaps now, fear. The city outside seemed to breathe more heavily with our presence. Lurking, waiting to unveil another trial. "I don't understand why we're targeted," I confessed, my voice trembling as I glanced at Min and Suki. "What did we do?" Suki interlocked her fingers with mine, drawing strength from a connection forged by shared peril. "I think it's more about what we know." Those words struck a deeper chord. The intangible weight of knowledge? It was a notion I had scarcely considered, and now it loomed like a specter we could barely comprehend. Just then, the door creaked, and there stood a tall figure wrapped in shadows. "Hannah." The man's voice was gravelly and urgent. "You brought them here?" "Alberto." "Just in time. But it's not safe. They have eyes everywhere. You should have kept your distance." "We had no choice." Hannah's voice was laced with a protective fierceness that left me in awe. "They're after us and they won't stop. We need your help." Alberto's gaze flickered to us, his expression revealing a mix of caution and curiosity. "I've seen the fear in the eyes of those pursuing you. I know what they want. You need to prepare for what comes next." "What comes next?" I asked, dread curling in the pit of my stomach. Before he could respond, sharp footsteps clattered outside the building, growing closer, closer, like a heartbeat welcoming its end. My pulse quickened, the atmosphere thickening as I could practically feel the impending confrontation. "Hide," Alberto commanded, his voice a low whisper. "Now!" We scrambled, finding dark corners and crevices where our forms could blend with the shadows. All the while my mind raced with the implications of what lay beyond those walls. As footsteps crescendoed to a stop, I held my breath, fear poised with an almost electric charge. And then, everything shattered as the door burst open, a blinding flash of light flooding into our hiding spots. The breath caught in my throat, one thought repeating over and over. This was where it began, but where it would end was now a haunting uncertainty. The moment the door swung open, I knew we had crossed a line we couldn't uncross, and the weight of it felt heavy, like lead resting on my chest. Light flooded the room, illuminating the dust motes swirling in the air, and casting sharp shadows against the walls, which suddenly felt alive, breathing in tandem with the tension that filled the space. Hands where I can see them. A voice, sharp and authoritative, sliced through the air. I didn't dare to breathe, frozen in the hidden corner I occupied. Fear wrapped around me, squeezing tighter with every passing second. Mint's fingers trembled against mine, his anxiety transferring through our interconnectedness. I listened as footsteps thundered into the room, accompanied by a low murmur of urgent voices. "What do you mean they're not here? They were spotted just moments ago." One of the voices, urgent, frustrated, made my stomach drop that no one else saw them enter. "They must have hidden." Another voice replied, this one beating with desperation. "Sweep the area. They can't escape this time." I could feel Alberto's presence nearby, quiet but tense, like a coiled spring ready to unleash fury at any moment. Involuntarily, I held my breath. It felt as if the world had come to a standstill, suspended in a terrifying balance between hope and despair. The voices faded slightly, pulling further away from our corner, but I knew they wouldn't be gone for long. A flicker of desperate hope surged within me as I glanced at Suki. Her eyes mirrored mine, filled with a mixture of fear but also a strange resolve. We were in this together, a thread of shared fate that seemed to tighten around us. Suddenly, Hannah's sharp whisper pierced the thick tension. "Alberto, what do we do? We can't stay here." His answer came in a low murmur, barely above a breath. "We wait for the right moment. Trust me, I've got a plan." Those words didn't instill confidence. They ignited a small flicker of despair. Why did it feel like we were always waiting? It gnawed at my insides, and I yearned for action, for a way out. Minutes felt like an eternity, stretching and pulling against the constraints of time. The voices outside faded further, allowing space for my racing thoughts. Questions bounced around in my mind, colliding with my fears. Were they really after us? What secret did I hold? Was I strong enough to face whatever it was, or would I falter in the face of danger? I glanced at Min again, and the incredible pride I felt for his resolve shone through the fear in his eyes. He seemed to sense my uncertainty, squeezing my hand in reassurance. It was in that small, momentous, simple grasp of comfort that something began to shift in me. This fight was more than just about survival. It was about the connections we built along the way. It was about standing together when the world threatened to tear us apart. And then, without warning, the door swung open again, wider this time. A stranger stood there, silhouetted against the light of the street outside. He was built like a wall, a figure that seemed to absorb the brilliance around him. "Alberto, we need to move. Now." The urgency in his tone electrified the air. "Who is this?" I whispered to Min, my heart pounding like a drum in my ears. "An ally." Min responded, his voice barely more than a rasp. "But we need to trust him." Alberto stepped forward. "What do you mean?" "There's no time to explain," the stranger urged, stepping further into the room as the echoes of shoes outside began to grow closer again. "They're coming. We have to go or we'll be trapped." I looked back at Hannah, the concern on her face clear. "We can't leave. They'll catch us. They know what we've seen. They know who we are." The man shook his head, his expression grave. Your lives are more important than what you think you've witnessed. Just follow me, and trust that I can get you out of this mess. Without waiting for another word, he turned on his heel, and though it felt like the world around me was fracturing, we had little choice but to follow. I hoped for distraction and respite as we slipped through the narrow opening, back to the danger. Outside, each heartbeat echoed thunderously in my chest. I followed Min closely, and Suki clung to my side, weaving through the shadows that clung to us like second skin. Thoughts raced through my mind. Who was this man? Could he really help us? We rounded the corner, the alley eerily silent now, and just when I thought we were safe, his phone buzzed loudly, piercing the quiet night. He froze. They're closer than I thought, he murmured. Without hesitation, we darted down the next street, suddenly playing a game of cat and mouse with adrenaline coursing through our veins. And then I heard it. A sound that turned my blood cold. A voice, more familiar than I could have ever wanted, slipped through the silence like a whisper from the grave. I know you're here. There's nowhere to run. It was a voice I had trusted once. A voice that held fragments of my past. A chill pulled at every fiber of my being, my heart dropping as realization washed over me. I turned to Min, my breath hitching as I whispered, "We're about to face someone I never expected. This wasn't just a flight from danger. It was a confrontation waiting to unfurl a reckoning that had long been brewing, and I was unprepared for the storm that awaited." The echoes of that familiar voice left me reeling, a shockwave of memories threatening to drown me in regret and nostalgia. I struggled to keep my bearings in the chaos of the moment, fear and anger colliding within me. The weight of betrayal pressed down on my chest, but I couldn't afford to falter. Min and the others were counting on me. Who is it? Min's worried gaze searched my face, knowing this revelation would change everything. A former ally, I forced out through clenched teeth. Someone I thought would always be in my corner. He's the one they sent to find us? Suki's voice quavered, her grip tightening on my arm as if fearing she might lose me to this brewing storm. Next to me, the stranger, the wall of a man who had promised a way out, looked at me intently, his brow furrowing. "Stay focused," he said, a firm hand resting on my shoulder, guiding my anxious energy. "We'll face him together if it comes to that." The streetlights flickered above us in a hesitant rhythm, mirroring the uncertainty coursing through my veins. With each step we took, my world grew smaller, now whimpered down to an exaggerated moment of clarity. The fierce drive for self-preservation ignited within me. But as that voice carried heavier through the night, it also suddenly felt like the strings of the past were pulling me in directions I wasn't ready to explore. As we turned another corner, the silhouette appeared again, stepping from the shadows with an unnerving familiarity. My heart raced. "Isaac," I breathed, almost in disbelief. He wore a thick coat, one that looked like it had seen better days, but even in the fading light I could see the sharpness of his gaze. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for you." His reply was ice-cold but layered with tension, a practiced nonchalance hiding whatever turmoil churned beneath. "You disappeared, and I had no choice but to follow the trail. You're in deeper than you think, and I'm the only one who can help you now." Help? Those words tasted bitter on my tongue. How could I trust him again? Images of shared laughter, whispered secrets, and devotion flooded my mind, juxtaposed with the day he chose to leave me behind, chose to betray everything we once shared. I could feel myself spiraling, teetering on a line between rage and vulnerability. "What do you want from me?" The anger dripped from my voice, visceral and raw. "I want to save you," Isaac replied, his eyes searching mine for a flicker of the bond we used to have. "There are things you still don't understand. They're not just after you for what you saw. They want to erase the possibility of anyone leaving with that knowledge." Around me, Alberto's presence vibrated with tension. He was anxious, ready to pivot if necessary, but I saw a hint of uncertainty in his posture as well, the kind that suggested he was weighing this unexpected encounter with unfamiliar stakes. "Let's hear him out," he finally suggested, a soft command whispering through the unrest. This could change everything we believe. With every ounce of willpower, I wrestled against the darkness creeping inside me. How could I even entertain the idea of trusting him again? Yet the flicker of hope from others, their faith that there existed a way forward, stung me into reluctant consideration. If you think it'll just follow you back into whatever web you've woven, you're mistaken, I said, trying to assert control over the trembling uncertainty. In that moment of defiance, I saw a glimmer of the old Isaac, that imperfect hero I once knew. Let me show you what I've uncovered, he implored, desperation bleeding through the cracks of his facade. Just listen. Then you can decide. I inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the night press in around us, filled with the scent of rain-soaked pavement and lingering hope mingled with fear. I will, I said slowly, aligning my heartbeat with those around me. But if I sense even a hint of deception, I swear, I won't lie to you again, Isaac promised, sincerity flickering in his eyes of fiery light in the shadows surrounding us. He hesitated, the weight of his own resolve heavy upon him, before he nodded definitively, turning back down the darkened path we had come from. A hesitant trust that could sway either way, but ultimately we were out of options. And so we followed, yet every step felt like entering a crucible, where every truth could mean our doom or our salvation. Just then, a piercing shriek shattered the silence from behind us. The stranger cursed quietly under his breath, eyes darting with growing panic. They've found us. In that instant, every shadow in the alley seemed to come alive. Stomachs knotted with fear, a stark reminder that whatever new alliances we forged were more fragile than the fragile bonds that brought us together. I could feel the adrenaline racing through my veins, a vicious protector as I fired an urgent glance at our fractured party. Run, I shouted, instinct kicking in as the weight of my past enveloped me. The storm loomed too close, and the terrifying clash of loyalty and betrayal lurked beneath the surface. Would I ever outrun my own history? Or would I always carry the weight of those I once called family? The hasty footsteps echoed in the alleyway, muffled cries rising above the chaos. My pulse quickened as we broke into a sprint, every instinct begging me to escape the shadowy figures that pursued us. Heart pounding in my chest, I could feel my feet pounding against the pavement, fear propelling me forward while the past clung tightly to my back. Where do we go? Suki gasped, green eyes wide with panic as she glanced over her shoulder, searching for a beacon of hope in a world shrouded in darkness. Anywhere but here, I shouted, my voice ragged as we darted around a corner, the oppressive weight of memories threatening to crush me beneath its relentless grip. Isaac was fluid beside me, moving with an unexpected grace that reminded me of how we used to escape the confines of life when everything felt too heavy, a relic of a time when running felt more like freedom than fear. We rounded another turn, skidding to a halt as we faced an intersection. This way, Isaac urged, gesturing toward a narrow alley that led to a set of stairs disappearing into the depths of a crumbling building. I hesitated. What's in there? Trust me, he repeated, urgency pushing him to meet my gaze. We have to go underground. It's the safest route. My heart twisted, torn between the old urge to follow him blindly and the new instinct to question every word that came out of his mouth. Without waiting for my response, he took off down the narrow alley, the others falling in line behind him. The sound of footsteps grew distant as the shadows of our pursuers merged into indistinct forms, flickering in the dim light cast by a lone street lamp that I followed, the eerie quiet only heightening my senses. The air was thick with apprehension. Every breath taken was laced with the scent of adrenaline and latent fear. Yet a part of me hoped for anything that could anchor us in this storm. As we slipped through the door at the base of the steps, the damp air enveloped us like a shroud, swirling with the faint echoes of distant laughter and life above. For a moment, the world outside felt like a far-off nightmare. Its chaos faded into a muted hum. Okay, we can rest here, Isaac said, his voice low but charged. We're safe for now. I looked around the dimly lit room, taking in the remnants of forgotten lives. Peeling wallpaper, empty shelves, dust-filled corners brimming with memories. It was as if time had stopped, preserving the painful past like a beautiful tragedy. Is it really safe? I murmured, my eyes searching for reassurance amidst the uncertainty. Isaac stepped closer, closing the distance with a fierce intensity. If they were close, they would have followed us in. This place is a relic, but it's out of their reach for now. Isaac, Suki interrupted, her voice trembling. What do they want with us? What do you know? He hesitated, studying her face. What they want is bigger than any of us realize. It's about control information they believe you have. They see you as a threat, and from that point, they'll do anything to ensure you can't reveal it. A chill ran through me at his words, a knot of confusion and dread tightening with the implications they bore. I could feel Min trembling beside me, her fears echoing my own. What information? What could we possibly know? He opened his mouth to answer, only for a momentous flicker of revelation, and then a horrific crash erupted above. The ground shook beneath us, followed by muffled voices as footsteps raced toward the staircase. Go! I screamed, realizing they were coming for us. In that instant, the room felt like it was closing in, and desperation surged within me. Where? Mint's voice quavered, her face pale and eyes wide. Over there. I pointed to an old door slightly ajar at the edge of the room. Without giving it a second thought, I dashed toward it, adrenaline thrusting forward as I yanked it open. A musty smell drifted from within, but there was no time to hesitate. Everyone, come on, I urged, forcing Min and Suki through the threshold. Isaac followed closely, casting a glance over his shoulder as the crashing sounds grew nearer, filling the air like a grim reminder of our perilous situation as we squeezed into the tight space. I turned to see Alberto fading into the shadows, sage and sober in a way that once offered comfort but now filled me with uncertainty. His eyes locked onto mine, a silent witness to the storm brewing within our coalition. The door creaked shut behind us, sealing us in darkness and uncertainty. I can't do this again, I whispered, pressing my back against the wall as I closed my eyes, letting the moment wash over me. I could feel the weight of my choices holding me down, the fractures of trust tightening their grip around my heart. We can figure this out, Isaac whispered, standing close, his presence a flicker of warmth amidst the cold dread. If you let me guide you, I promise we can find a way. But before he could finish, the muffled voices rang above us, a chilling reminder that our brief escape might only be a momentary reprieve. Footsteps thundered above us as the door rattled on its hinges now, and then a silhouette appeared, one that sent a chill racing down my spine. This way, a voice said, cutting through the darkness with cruel familiarity. We know you're down there. The realization hit me like a freight train. They had found us. With a pounding heart and a fractured resolve, I could only prepare for the impending storm of chaos that awaited us, every heartbeat echoing with the question I'd spent a lifetime trying to answer. Would I ever be free of the ghosts that haunted my past, or was I destined to be consumed by them? The world outside felt like a distant memory, a landscape marred by chaos and uncertainty, replaced by the heavy stillness of the cramped room. Each breath I took echoed loudly against the walls, punctuated by the rattling of the door as the silhouettes above us moved restlessly, their determination palpable. I could hear their muffled voices forming menacing whispers, strategizing, hunting, securing their prize. Stay quiet, I whispered, feeling the weight of danger pressing down on us. Suki's hand slipped into mine, her grip trembling as fear radiated from her like a low hum. Min leaned against the opposite wall, her wide eyes darting between us, desperately seeking answers that eluded even Isaac. Oh, you think they really know? Min asked softly, her voice wavering. What I might have. I don't know, I said, my heart sinking. That uncertainty gnawed at me, and I could feel the cracks in my composure showing. But we should prepare for the worst. The dim light filtering through the door cast ominous shadows, twisting the room into a deeper abyss of fear. I wanted to tell her that it would be okay, that my instincts would lead us to safety, but I felt my own confidence waning, crushed under the weight of the moment. Isaac edged closer, his voice low and steady. If they manage to track you, then it's likely they have eyes and ears everywhere, he posed, glancing at Suki. You need to remember you're not alone in this. I know it feels overwhelming, but we have each other. I will protect you. His words were both comforting and infuriating. How could he promise safety when the very ground beneath us threatened to collapse with each tremor of the door? I felt a deep, instinctive need to protect them, a woman running blindly into a burning house to save those she loved. Yet every protective instinct within screamed at me to flee. They won't just give up, I replied, my voice tinged with bitterness, frustration feasting on my courage. They will come for us. Then, as if the universe deemed it necessary, the door jolted open with a fierce crash, splintering the darkness that had enveloped us. The harsh light poured in, revealing 3 figures silhouetted against the threshold, sharp, angry outlines like wolves in the moonlight, hungry for their prey. A shard of panic erupted within me. Run! I shouted, shoving Suki and Min towards the back of the room. There was no time for hesitation. Isaac's eyes met mine, understanding and fear warring behind his gaze, before he turned and bolted, leading the charge into whatever lay ahead. The sound of stomping boots echoed in our wake, thudding reminders that we were not alone and that our lives depended on the choices made in the next few moments. I stumbled as I slipped through the dark passage behind Isaac, Nix's frantic heartbeat synchronizing with mine. The air felt electric. It ignited the resolve that sparked within me, yet uncertainty lingered on the outskirts of my determination as we rounded a corner in confusion. I caught the faintest glimpse of the room we had surged into, stacked boxes and crates piled high, so unlike the typical clutter awaiting our arrival. The sense of dust and something metallic pricked the edges of my senses, familiar yet entirely foreign. We hide, I urged, a mixture of desperation and resolve leading my instincts, gesturing towards a narrow crevice between the boxes. Suki hesitated, her eyes wide and questioning. Are we sure this is safe? She whispered, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf in a storm. But I could see that the well of fear had filled to overflowing, drowning her inner light. We don't have a choice, I insisted, shoving her forward into the cramped hiding space. Isaac climbed in behind her, followed closely by Min, and as I squeezed in last, I could feel my heart pounding against my chest, a frantic drummer trying to keep time in chaos. A moment passed silent yet stretching, horrifying with each beat of my heart, each sound echoing above as the pursuers settled into the room. Split up, one voice commanded, gruff and low. Fan out and search. They can't have gone. FAR.my breath hitched as dread tightened its grip around my throat, but I forced myself to remain silent. I felt the warmth of Suki's body next to mine, a frail connection amid the darkness binding us together in uncertainty. Isaac's presence loomed behind her, a steadfast beacon of loyalty. Stronger in this maelstrom than I could ever envision being, minutes stretched into an eternity, the fear-tangled air thick with anticipation. I peered through the crack between the crates, watching shadows shift and breathe, desperately wishing they could somehow become lighter, that chaos gave way to tranquility. Suddenly, a loud thud sounded, and a box came crashing down several feet from where we huddled, the noise reverberating in the air like a clarion call of chaos. I flinched, and my heart leapt into my throat as I caught a glimpse of an approaching figure, the edge of their silhouette sharp against the pale light. Terror clawed at my chest when I recognized the face emerging from the shadows. It was a face I had grown to fear and one that made uncertainty bubble to the surface. Dean, the leader of our pursuers, wearing a grin that carried no friendly intentions. Well, what do we have here? He taunted, his voice laced with confidence and malice. Did you really think you could hide from us? My blood ran cold as he stepped forward, closer, and I felt the walls of our refuge constricting around me, closing in with smoke and horror. The others whispered hushed reassurances. It seemed like a lifetime since I imagined freedom, but I was left hanging on the edge of despair, drenched in the echoes of decisions that had brought us to this precipice. Whatever blossoming hope remained within me was now overshadowed by an unforgiving reality. The webs that had ensnared us were woven deeply into the fabric of our lives. Time ambled onward, minutes spilling into an agonizing void as I could only wonder how we could ever hope to escape the talons of our past, and if there was a path that led us out of the suffocating darkness. But now, I was left only with unanswered questions, trapped between the ghost of choices made and the certainty of danger that lay ahead. The uncertainty hung palpably in the air, tightening around my throat as Dean loomed closer, his chilling presence suffocating the flickering spark of hope that lingered among us. "You should have known," he chuckled, a sickeningly feigned amusement lighting his features. "You should have known that secrets aren't merely whispered in the shadows. They ripple through lives, causing waves that drown those foolish enough to hold them." I felt Suki's body tense beside me, her warm fear pressing against my arm. She clutched my hand tightly, grounding me as we both shared unspoken worries. I wanted to remind her that we were in this together, that we wouldn't let whatever he had planned consume us. But then he stepped further into the room, and anxiety bled through me like ink in water. "That's the beauty of this little game, isn't it?" he continued, his eyes glinting with malicious intrigue. "The ones who think they have the upper hand are often the ones most in danger." I barely registered the words. A swirling tempest of dread consumed my thoughts. How had we arrived at a point where the very secrets of our lives had become our chains? I could feel the walls around us pressing inward like a vice, threatening to crush everything we believed in. But in that moment, some deep-rooted instinct urged me to speak. "Why do you care so much about us?" I forced the words out, my voice quivering but resolute. I would not let him intimidate us into submission. Not now. "We're just trying to live, earn our place in this world." He laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the cramped room, reverberating off the walls like a cruel mockingbird. "You think this is about living? It's about control, about power. You're not just a nuisance. You're a variable that disrupts the delicate balance we fought so hard to maintain." At his words, a fire ignited deep within me. I knew we had strength as long as we were united. Glancing at Min and Suki, I could see the resolve flickering in their eyes, to a shared understanding that we could no longer be shadows in a world created by someone else. It wasn't just our lives at stake. It was our dreams, our identities. "What do you want?" Mint's voice rang out. "If we're so inconsequential, then why not let us be?" Dean's gaze fixed on her, a calculating smirk playing on his lips. "Because knowledge is a powerful thing. It has the ability to transform, to invoke change. And people like you, naive in your passions but intelligent enough to grasp the threads, are often the most dangerous. Then why don't you just let us walk away?" My voice wavered, but I held my ground, desperation and defiance intertwining. "Because," he replied, a predatory glint in his eye, "if you walk away, you'll carry knowledge that could unravel everything." In that moment, realization dawned. Knowledge was not just a threat. It was a weapon. I had not merely been an unwilling participant in this game of shadows. I had the power to change its course. A flicker of determination surged within me. This was the moment where I could choose to reclaim my narrative. Just as I was about to speak, to make the final stand for the life I wanted to weave for myself and my friends, a noise filtered through the door, a rush of footsteps and voices, loud and decisive. My heart raced at the realization that we were about to be thrust into chaos again. But something deeper whispered that help was close. "Quick, we have to go," Isaac hissed, his voice urgent but lacking a hint of cowardice. "Whose?" I began, but the words caught in my throat as Hannah's familiar face emerged from the shadows, determination leading the charge behind her. "They've been looking for you," she stated, breathless but resolute. "Your past doesn't define you. You have a future." Behind her, the family I had forged through resilience, every ally, every friend stood strong and defiant, ready to dispel the darkness that had followed us for too long. Time froze for a terrifying moment, our gazes locking with Dean's in a standoff that would change everything. And then the world erupted. With our combined forces, love, betrayal, camaraderie. Whirlwind of chaos was birthed. Shadows clashed against the light as our resolve propelled us forward. Dread no longer shackling our feet, we charged toward the faint glimmer of freedom, trusting in the bonds that had guided us thus far. Before we could escape, Dean's voice rose above the din, taunting, "You're all fools. You can't escape your fate." But I turned my back on his desperate attempts to control me. I faced the darkness in ways he couldn't understand, crafted my future from the very ashes he threatened to consume us in. With every step, I felt them beside me: Suki, Min, Isaac, Hannah, and even the enigmatic Alberto. all linked together in this raw moment of defiance. The shadows began to wilt as we stepped into the light, a blaring crescendo that opened the door to the rest of our Levisa future laced with fresh decisions, with new beginnings that beckoned as we burst through the exit, spilling out into the night. The weight of uncertainty faded into strength. The shadows that had once loomed over us now felt distant and spectral, arms grasping for what they couldn't have. Hope thrummed through me, and I understood that while they might chase after our past, I would define my own future as the journey unfolded ahead. I grasped Suki and Min's hands tighter. No more running, I vowed, my voice steady with newfound conviction. We're done being pawns, and in that resolute affirmation, with all of us united against the encroaching darkness, I could feel the flicker of light bloom brighter than it ever had before. This was our rebirth. This was our time. With a swift inhale, I stepped forward, leaving the haunting past behind, eager for the bright, unknown horizon ahead of us. I knew that facing this darkness would wield wisdom, resolve, and inevitable growth. The fight was only just beginning, but whatever lay ahead would never extinguish the strength we'd gathered in the fire of betrayal, and in the distance, as the night melted into dawn, I found peace in the quiet certainty of our purpose. Together we would rise.